Imagine this. You work your whole life. You wake before sunrise, run a bakery with your bare hands, raise two children almost entirely on your own because your husband's job kept him away. You skip vacations, skip luxuries, just so your kids can have everything. You sell your wedding ring to pay tuition. You sacrifice sleep, health, and joy, because that's what mothers do. Now imagine, years later your husband is gone and you're older. Your children, those very same children, surprise you with a luxury cruise. A full week on the Mediterranean. They smile, hug you, and say, "Mom, you deserve it. This is our gift to you." You believe them. Of course you do. They're your family. You pack your suitcase, step on board a glittering ship, and for one moment, you feel safe, loved, celebrated. But what if that gift was not a gift at all? What if the cruise was a trap? At midnight, inside the ballroom, they don't hand you champagne. They hand you a pen. And in front of strangers dressed in masks, they tell you to sign a simple form. A form that, if you sign it, gives away your house, your money, and your entire future. This is not a story about wealth. It's a story about betrayal. A story about how a mother discovered her children's secret plan to take everything from her. But here's the twist. They thought she was weak. They thought she was naive. They didn't know. She had already made her move. The ballroom of the Aurora of the Seas glittered like a jewel box. Gold chandeliers dripped light onto polished floors, and the walls hummed faintly with the vibration of the engines deep below. A string quartet played La Vie en Rose, the notes curling through the air like perfume. Waiters in pressed white jackets floated between tables with trays of champagne flutes, each glass hissing with bubbles. I stood with my family in the center of it all. My children smiled like actors under stage lights. My son Daniel raised his glass high. "To Mom and Dad," he declared. His voice carried easily above the music. "To 50 years of love, sacrifice, and family." People nearby clapped politely. I forced a smile, but the words stung. 50 years. My husband, Arthur, had been gone for 3. His chair at home still sat empty, his navy cap still hanging by the door. No toast could fill that absence. My daughter Laura leaned against me, her phone already angled for a selfie. "Say cheese, Mom," she whispered, tilting her head so the crystal chandelier shone behind us. The flash lit our faces. "Perfect. Dad would have loved this." "Yes," I said quietly. He loved beautiful rooms. Daniel wrapped an arm around my shoulder. He smelled faintly of cologne. Expensive, sharp, the kind that tries too hard. "You deserve this, Mom," he said. "This trip is our gift to you." I looked at his smile, practiced and polished, and said nothing. Then I heard it. A whisper meant to be private, but carried just far enough. "Tonight," my daughter-in-law Sabrina breathed into Daniel's ear. "We finally take care of the paperwork." I froze. Paperwork. Daniel gave a small nod. His glass still lifted. I blinked once, slowly, and then smiled wider. "To family," I echoed, raising my own glass. Sabrina glanced at me, her lips curving in that careful way she had. "Oh, it's just for the gala," she said sweetly. "They need your consent for the photos." "Photos," I repeated, voice steady. "How exciting!" The music swelled again, as if the ship itself wanted to drown her words. But they were already burned into my mind. Tonight. Paperwork. Midnight. I lowered my glass and let my eyes wander across the room. On the balcony above, I saw a tall man in a navy suit. He had a neat haircut and sharp, watchful eyes. Marco Bellini, the ship's hotel director. He and I had met earlier when I asked, oddly for a passenger, for a detailed map of the ship. His handshake had been warm, but his eyes had lingered, curious. He'd studied me like a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit. Now he caught my gaze again. He didn't smile. He only gave the smallest nod, subtle but certain. It was as if he wanted to say, "I see you." I understand more than I let on. The band played brighter now. Waiters spun between guests with practiced grace. Flashbulbs popped. Laughter rose in warm waves, but I felt none of it. Inside me, a cold clarity sharpened. My children thought this cruise was a gift. They thought champagne would soften me, that music would relax me. They thought I was only a signature, an old woman they could steer with sweet words and a little pressure. They were wrong. I had seen the signs before we boarded. I had read their careless emails, the documents labeled contingencies. I knew about the simple form they wanted me to sign. A form that would take everything Arthur and I had built and place it in their hands. They thought I hadn't noticed. They thought I was tired, distracted, weak, but I had already prepared. Daniel leaned close again, his voice warm with charm. "Mom, the midnight gala is going to be incredible. Venetian masks, music, dancing. But before that, just a quick stop at the business center at 11:45. One tiny form, then straight to the party." Sabrina's smile sparkled. "It's for spa credits," she added. "We all get free treatments if you sign." I sipped my water instead of champagne. "Lovely," I said. "I do love a plan." She squeezed my hand. "You won't make a fuss, right? It's really just a formality." "I like formalities," I answered. "They make everything clear." Our smiles touched like knives, sharp and polite. Across the room, Marco still watched, speaking quietly to a security officer at his side. He didn't look at me again, but I felt his presence like a lighthouse beam sweeping across dark water. The clock above the ballroom door ticked softly, its hands sliding toward the hour. 10:18 p.m. Each minute was a wave carrying us closer to midnight. I lifted my glass once more, my hand steady. "To family," I said, voice calm. But in my heart, the words were different. To truth. To the mirror I will hold up tonight, because at 11:45 they would bring me a pen. And at midnight, I would bring them the storm. The cruise had been presented as a surprise. It came one night in my inbox at 2:11 a.m. with the subject line, "For our Queen." The email opened with confetti animations, a glittering banner from the travel agency, and a note written in Laura's bubbly style. "Mom, you've given us everything. Now it's time for you to enjoy yourself. 7 nights on the Mediterranean. We'll make memories together. No stress, no work, just joy." For a moment I had smiled. The idea of blue seas and old stone streets tugged at something deep in me. Arthur and I had once dreamed of visiting these places together. He always promised, "When the bakery slows down, Evie, when the bills aren't breathing down our necks." But the bakery never slowed, and then he was gone. At breakfast the next morning, Daniel sat across from me, his tie knotted even though it was Saturday. He spread marmalade across toast with quick, impatient strokes. "You deserve something grand, Mom," he said. "We've all agreed. This cruise is perfect. You need to relax to reset." Laura, bright as always, nodded too quickly. "It's all inclusive. Santorini, Naples, Barcelona, just like when you and Dad traveled young." "We didn't backpack through Europe, darling," I corrected softly. "We carried one suitcase and stubbornness." They laughed, relieved at my humor. They thought their words had landed. But that night, I brewed chamomile tea and clicked the booking link again. The reservation was indeed under my name, but the contact email was wrong. Not mine. It read, trip.teamaccarverhome.org. Curious, I scrolled further. A second folder sat buried within the attachments. Its name, Contingencies. I frowned. What kind of gift came with contingencies? I opened it. Inside were files with cheerful, misleading titles: POA Basics, PDF Advanced Directive Guide, PDF Ship Notary Geese Services, PDF, and, at the bottom, one image file, SignFlow PNG. It was a flowchart, yellow and neat, with big arrows pointing toward a box outlined in red. The box said only 3 words: "Evelyn, sign here." My tea went cold in my hands. I clicked into the email chain and found a forwarded message from Sabrina to Daniel. The language was rushed, casual, but the meaning cut sharp. "Did you confirm the ship has notaries? We'll need Mom to sign one doc in case of emergency. Midnight gala is perfect. She'll be relaxed." Relaxed. I closed the laptop and stared at the mantel where Arthur's navy cap still hung. He had worn it every morning walking to the bakery before dawn, the brim pulled low against the wind. He used to joke, "The cap keeps me sharp. You never fold when you look sharp." Arthur had taught me poker on rainy nights. Not the glamorous kind, the patient kind. Counting, watching, knowing when to let others think they had the advantage. He always said, "The quiet hand wins." "Don't blink, Evie, don't ever blink," I whispered into the empty room. "They don't know you taught me to count." For hours I sat at the kitchen table, tea long gone cold, thinking. The betrayal wasn't just in the plan. It was in their faces that morning, in the way Laura's eyes had darted, in how Daniel's smile had held too long. They hadn't brought me joy. They'd brought me bait. They wanted me on that ship because at sea everything was contained. No neighbors. No friends. No chance to run. Just midnight, music, and a single pen waiting for my trembling hand. But my hand was not trembling now. It was steady on the phone as I dialed. The voice on the other end was firm, familiar. "Imani, my old accountant." "Imani," I said, hypothetically, what if adult children tried to get their mother to sign a power of attorney? On a cruise? There was a pause, then a sharp laugh. "Evelyn, tell me you're wearing heels." "Because you'll need something sharp to stab them with." "Hypothetically," I repeated. Her tone softened. "How much is left from the insurance?" "Enough to make them greedy," I said. "Do you want me to flag your accounts?" "I already did." "Dual authorization, me and you only." Silence hummed, then a sigh. "I always admired how you set things like recipes. Ingredients, heat, timing. Never random. Recipes are just permission," I said. "Permission to deviate. Permission to add fire." Imani chuckled, but her voice carried weight. "Then cook carefully, Evelyn. They won't expect resistance. That's your strength." I hung up and sat back in the dark. The clock ticked softly toward midnight. I opened the laptop once more and stared at the bright yellow flowchart. "Sign here." I pressed my pen against my notebook and wrote something different. They think I'm a signature. I'm a witness. The words looked sharp in ink. Sharp enough to cut, and I promised myself, when the moment came, I would not blink. The port smelled of salt and diesel. Seagulls screamed above, circling the massive cruise ship like white-feathered scavengers waiting for scraps. It loomed before us, 12 decks tall, with balconies stacked like teeth in a giant's grin. The ship's name, the Elysium, was painted in gold letters across its white hull, shining under the winter sun. Laura linked her arm through mine, smiling too brightly. "Isn't it magnificent, Mom? Like a floating palace." I forced a smile. Palaces are expensive to maintain. Daniel was ahead of us, barking instructions at the porters who loaded our luggage onto carts. Sabrina trailed behind, already on the phone, her voice low and urgent. I caught snippets. Forms, appointments. Yes, the notary is confirmed. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. The gangway trembled under my steps as we boarded. Inside, the ship was an overwhelming assault of marble floors, chandeliers shaped like exploding stars, and music that seemed to echo from invisible speakers. Guests gawked, laughed, posed for photos. Staff in navy uniforms welcomed us with trays of champagne flutes. I declined mine. My children didn't notice. They each took two. We were led to our suite, Family Deluxe, Ocean View. The room smelled faintly of lemon polish and something sweeter, like vanilla. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the open sea. 2 adjoining rooms branched off for the grandchildren, though they were still at school and would join us later in the week. Laura flung herself onto the sofa, stretching like a satisfied cat. "This is it, Mom. The beginning of memories we'll cherish forever." Her words dripped with rehearsed sincerity. I placed my bag neatly by the bed. "Memories are fragile. They crack when handled carelessly." She blinked at me but said nothing. That evening, as the ship pulled away from shore, I stood alone on the balcony. The horizon swallowed the city lights until there was nothing but black sea and a bleeding orange sunset. I thought of Arthur, how he hated the idea of cruises. "Trapped with strangers, no way out but water," he'd said. He would have hated this ship. He would have hated this plan. Behind me, laughter spilled from the lounge where my children had gathered. I turned and saw them through the glass doors. Sabrina raised her glass, her lips shaping words I couldn't hear, but I read them all the same. To freedom. I closed the balcony door. The next morning, I explored the ship. I wanted to know its bones, its arteries, its escape routes. Arthur's voice echoed in my head. Always map the kitchen before you cook. Know where the exits are when the fire starts. Deck 5 had the restaurants, Italian, French, Asian fusion. Deck 7 had the spa, where women in robes sipped champagne. Deck 9 boasted the pool, crowded already with sunburned tourists. And on Deck 3, near a tucked-away office labeled Guest Services, I found what I was looking for, a frosted glass door with gold lettering. Notary Public, by appointment only. I stared at that door until a voice startled me. First time sailing? I turned. A man in a pressed white uniform stood leaning on a polished railing. His name badge read, Captain's Officer, Marcus Hale. He had weathered skin and eyes that had seen too much sea. Yes, I replied. First time. He studied me for a long moment. Then take advice from someone who knows. Not all passengers come for leisure. Some come with business hidden in their suitcases. I held his gaze. And what do you do with such passengers, Officer Hale? A slow smile tugged at his mouth. Watch them. See if they trip over their own secrets. Before I could answer, a voice called my name. It was Laura, waving from down the hall, her heels clicking fast on the polished floor. There you are, Mom! Come, we booked spa treatments. I nodded to Officer Hale. Thank you for the advice. He tipped his cap. Enjoy your voyage, Mrs. Carver. That night, there was a welcome gala in the grand ballroom. Chandeliers glittered like galaxies above silk-draped tables. My children guided me in, one on each side, too eager, too attentive, Sabrina whispered as we walked past the buffet. Just one form later, Mom. It'll give us peace of mind. Everyone does it, I smiled politely. Peace of mind is overrated. I prefer truth of mind. Her grip on my arm tightened, just for a second. At our table, Daniel pulled out a leather folder, pretending to check the menu. But I saw the corner of a document inside, thick with official seals. I lifted my champagne glass, though I hadn't tasted a drop. To family? I said softly. They echoed me, but none of their eyes met mine. When the music began and couples drifted to the dance floor, I excused myself. Instead of returning to my cabin, I found the observation deck. It was nearly empty, just the ocean stretching endless under the stars. Footsteps followed. I didn't turn until a voice said, You know they've set something up, don't you? It was Marcus Hale again. He leaned against the rail, his face shadowed. I met his gaze steadily. Yes, he nodded as if that answer pleased him. Then play carefully. The sea keeps secrets, but not forever. I looked back at the black water below, waves foaming white in the ship's wake. My children thought they were leading me into a trap, but they had forgotten one thing. I had been married to Arthur Carver, and Arthur had taught me how to win when the table was stacked against me. The fourth night on the Elysium began with a masquerade ball. Masks of gold and silver glittered in the ballroom under chandeliers shaped like waterfalls of crystal. Guests danced to violins while waiters glided between them carrying trays of wine. Daniel and Sabrina arrived last, dressed like royalty. Sabrina wore a feathered mask, her lips crimson as blood. Daniel had chosen a black velvet mask, simple but commanding. Laura was already at our table, fanning herself dramatically, her mask sparkling with sequins. Mother, she said, as if addressing an audience, tonight will be unforgettable. Her words lingered like perfume. I smiled. Memories often are. The plan was moving closer. I could see it in the way they exchanged glances, in the folder Daniel carried disguised as part of his costume. They thought the stage was theirs, but I had already rehearsed my own play. Earlier that morning, while they lounged at the spa, I had gone back to Deck 3. The frosted glass door with the words Notary Public was locked, but I had arranged my own appointment, not for midnight, As they had, but for early dawn the next day. My papers would already be waiting. Papers that proved everything in my name, signed with a steadier hand than they imagined I had. The notary, a tired man with kind eyes, had looked at me curiously. "Most families who meet me on this ship," he said, "come arguing. You came prepared." "I've been preparing for years," I replied. He only nodded, stamped the documents, and slid them into a cream envelope. That envelope now rested in the safe of my cabin, its lock sealed with a code only I knew. Back at the masquerade, the band played louder, the dancers spinning faster. Daniel rose, clinking his glass. "Friends, travelers, honored guests," he announced, his voice carrying across the room. "Tonight we celebrate family, our most precious treasure." Applause rippled. He turned toward me with exaggerated affection. "And tonight, we honor the woman who gave us everything, our mother, Evelyn Carver." All eyes turned. For a moment, the applause felt real. But behind their masks, I saw pity. Or was it calculation? I stood gracefully, bowing my head. "Thank you. Family is indeed a treasure. But like treasure, it must be guarded." Daniel's smile faltered for half a second. He gestured toward the balcony doors. "Mother, would you join us for a private toast?" "Just the family." Laura was already gliding toward the balcony, her sequins catching the light. Sabrina followed, the leather folder tucked under her arm. I sipped from my untouched glass of champagne, then placed it on the table. Of course, the balcony was quiet, overlooking the Black Sea. Only the wind and the thrum of the engines below broke the silence. Stars glittered above, sharp and cold. Sabrina laid the folder on a small table. She opened it with careful ceremony, revealing the papers. "Mother, this is simply a precaution. A small adjustment to make sure things are smooth. For the future." Laura added, "We don't want you worrying about details. You've worked so hard for us. Let us carry the burden now." Their words were honeyed, but the poison was clear. Daniel slid a pen across the table. "Just a signature, Mother? That's all it takes." I lifted the pen, turning it slowly in my fingers. The gold nib glinted in the moonlight. "You've thought of everything," I said. "Of course," Sabrina replied. "That's what family does." I looked up at them, smiling softly. "And what if I told you I've already signed my own documents?" For a moment, silence. Only the sea answered. Daniel blinked. "What do you mean?" I mean," I said, lowering the pen back onto the table, "that long before you planned this midnight surprise, I made my own arrangements. Everything, every account, every property, every penny, remains under my control." Laura's mask slipped slightly, her eyes wide. "You're lying." I leaned closer. "Am I?" The wind whipped Sabrina's hair across her face. Her fingers trembled as she closed the folder. "Why?" Daniel asked, his voice low, dangerous now. "Because trust is earned," I replied. "And you lost mine the moment you plotted against me." From the shadows near the balcony doors, a cough interrupted us. Officer Marcus Hale stepped into the light, maskless, his uniform crisp. "Is there a problem here?" he asked calmly. Sabrina forced a laugh. "Not at all. Just family business." Marcus's eyes lingered on the folder. "Funny. Family business often ends up on my desk at dawn." I met his gaze. "Not this time, officer. Everything is already in order." He gave me the smallest nod before stepping back into the ballroom. Leaving the three of them pale in the moonlight, I turned, placing my hands on the railing, watching the sea foam trail behind the ship. "Enjoy the ball," I said softly. "Midnight belongs to me." And I walked back inside, leaving their silence heavy as the waves. Morning light spilled into my cabin like a soft gold river. The ship hummed as it cut through calm water. For a few minutes I stood on the balcony, breathing the salt air, letting the sea clear the taste of last night's lies from my mouth. A soft knock came at the door. 2 short taps, 1 long, crew rhythm. I opened it to find Nina, the junior purser, holding a silver tray with a teapot and a small plate of buttered toast. "Compliments of the hotel director," she said, "and of someone who asked me to check on you." "Someone?" I asked. Her eyes flicked down the hall. "Let's say, the ship prefers peace." I let her in. She set the tray on the table and poured tea with steady hands. "Did you sleep, Mrs. Carver?" she asked. "Enough," I said. "Do you ever tell a guest the truth when they ask a question like that?" "Only when they're strong enough to hear it," she replied, a hint of a smile at the corner of her mouth. I liked her. She didn't waste words. She also didn't pretend not to see what was in front of her. "Tell Mr. Bellini thank you," I said, "and tell him I appreciate the map. It has been useful." She nodded, then lowered her voice. "If you need a room change, we can move you to a deck with limited access. Quieter, fewer eyes." "I won't hide," I said gently. "Not today," Nina folded her hands. "Then at least let us add a note to your profile. No key duplication without your approval. It's simple. It stops a lot of misunderstandings." "Do it," I said. "And one more thing. If anyone tries to meet me at guest services without an appointment, call me first." Her eyes warmed. "Of course." As she turned to go, I added, "Nina, do you know a ship's doctor I can trust?" She paused. "Dr. Saeed. He's good. He listens. Please ask him if he has 10 minutes for me today." "I'll arrange it," she said, and slipped out like a thought you don't want to force. Daniel knocked at 9:15, just as I finished my tea. His face was bright, voice too cheerful. "Mother, breakfast? There's a buffet on deck 5, carving stations, crepes, the works." "Let's go," I said. He looked surprised. He'd expected a struggle. People do when they plan to herd you somewhere you don't want to go. In the elevator, he tapped his phone, then slid it into his pocket. "Laura's meeting us. Sabrina's sorting out some spa paperwork. For everyone. You'll love it." "I adore paperwork," I said. "It clarifies intent," he laughed too loudly. "You and your jokes." We walked the buffet like polite strangers. I took eggs, fruit, and tea. He loaded his plate as if greed was a sport. We sat by a window. The sea was a flat sheet of steel. Daniel cut into a stack of pancakes and spoke without looking up. "Mom, about last night. Sabrina can be intense. She just wants things. Organized. Organized," I said. "Like a binder with forms." He flinched, then covered it with a shrug. "You know how life is? There are liabilities. Medical emergencies. You wouldn't want us stuck if something happened to you on board." "Then you should bring flowers to the notary," I said lightly. "He sees so much love." His fork paused in midair. "Daniel," I continued, keeping my voice soft, "you brought me on this ship to corner me. It would have worked if I were the woman you remember. But I'm not." He set the fork down. "We're just trying to help." "No," I said. "You're trying to own." Laura arrived then, breathless, hair perfect, guilt not even bothering to hide behind her smile. "Mom." She kissed the air near my cheek and sat. "Big plans. Pool in the morning, shopping at noon, and, oh, Sabrina found a short appointment at guest services later." "Like 5 minutes? You won't even notice." 5 minutes can change a life," I said. She laughed too quickly, then drank water as if it could wash her words away. Sabrina arrived last, all ice and roses. She didn't sit. She placed a slim folder beside my plate. "Mother, I apologize for any confusion last night," she said, tone smooth. "It's not power of attorney. It's a simple consent, limited, temporary, just to make sure we can sign for your spa treatments and excursions if you feel tired. You'll still have control." "How loving," I said. "Bring me the paper then. We'll read every word together." Her relief was too big, too fast. "Of course." She handed me a single page. I didn't touch it. I just looked at the heading. It wasn't power of attorney, but it wasn't a spa consent either. Limited financial authorization. Travel emergencies. There was a paragraph buried halfway down in thin, board font, the kind that tries to look harmless. Granting temporary authority to designated parties for transactions deemed necessary for guest welfare, including but not limited to lodging changes, onboard expenditures, and third-party bookings. One sentence can gut a life. "Clever," I said. "If I didn't read, I might sign." Sabrina pressed her lips together. "It's standard." "Nothing about this is standard." Daniel reached for charm like a weapon. Mom, we're your children. Why would we ever harm you? Because you are afraid, I said simply. Afraid I will die and leave you to your own lives. Afraid I will live and spend what you believe belongs to you. The truth made their faces stop working for a second. Then Sabrina smiled like a blade. Think about it, she said. We'll come by at 11. They left. Laura didn't meet my eyes. I folded the paper without touching it and slid it back into the folder with my napkin, as if it were just another piece of trash. The sea outside the window wore a thin line of light. Somewhere far below, the ship's heart beat steady. Nina called at 10. Dr. Saeed can see you at 10:20. Mrs. Carver? Medical deck? I thanked her and went. Dr. Saeed looked like the kind of man who understood pain without making you rehearse it. His office was quiet, clean, no posters telling me how to feel. He offered water. I declined. I don't need medicine, I said. I need witnesses. He didn't blink. On a cruise, he said, witnesses are sometimes better than medicine. I told him what I needed, a short evaluation stating I was fully oriented, capable, not under duress. I asked if he would be willing to be present if anyone tried to force a signature. He listened, then nodded slowly. I can assess you now. And if you dial the medical line during any disagreement, I will come. We also have security who know when to stand where they can be seen. He ran me through a few simple tests. Date, place, memory. I passed, of course. He signed a brief statement and placed it in a sealed envelope. For you, he said. And if you like, I can keep a copy. Do, I said. And doctor, if you see a storm, don't bring an umbrella. Bring a camera. His mouth twitched. Understood. At noon, I met Marco Bellini in a small lounge that smelled like polished wood and citrus. He poured espresso for both of us and didn't waste time. Your children requested a private notary at 11:45 tonight, he said. I assumed, I replied. Cancel it. I can't cancel a guest's appointment without cause, he said. But I can add observers, discreetly. Add 2, I said. You and security. Far enough to look polite. Close enough to count, he nodded. What else? No key copies for my cabin, I said. No charges to my account without my signature. If anyone asks to move me to a different room, you call me first. And one more favor. If my children come to guest services with papers before 11:45, please be out of pens. He smiled into his espresso. We run out of pens often. I took from my bag the cream envelope the notary had stamped at dawn, my pre-filed declarations, my account flags, my own small fortress of paper, and placed it on the table. Marco, I said, meeting his eyes, tonight I will not make a scene. I will make a record. He tapped the envelope once with a careful finger, then slid it back toward me. Then let's give you a stage with good lighting. We stood. He straightened his jacket, and for a moment he looked like a man about to conduct an orchestra. One last thing, Mrs. Carver, he said. If anyone shouts, hotel policy asks us to quiet the room. If anyone threatens, we remove the threat. I don't need removal, I said. I need truth. Truth, he said softly, is the loudest sound we can make. At 3 p.m., Sabrina slipped a note under my door. 45, Business Center. Please don't be difficult. I placed it beside the doctor's envelope and Marco's card. The ship sailed forward, steady as a promise. They thought midnight would belong to them. They were almost right. Midnight would belong to the truth. By late afternoon, the ship turned into the wind. The sea darkened to deep blue, almost black. The sky wore thin silver clouds like torn silk. It looked like weather, but it felt like timing. I laid out my small army on the desk in my cabin. Doctor's letter in a sealed envelope. Alert, oriented, not under duress. My declarations, pre-filed at dawn with the notary. All assets remain in my control. No third-party authority granted on this voyage. A list of instructions signed by Marco. No key duplicates. No charges without my signature, observers on standby. A note to myself, written in plain ink, Stay calm. Speak short. Ask questions they must answer out loud. I added one more item. Arthur's navy cap. I set it on the corner of the desk, brim forward. He had always faced the door like that, ready. At 5:01 p.m., I walked the ship once more. Not for nerves. For rhythm, deck 3, business center, frosted glass, quiet, 2 private desks, and a printer that made a soft sleeping sound. Deck 4, ballroom, staff setting chairs, polishing glass, a sound tech testing a microphone. Check, check. Deck 5, atrium, a small clock hung above the bar. I stood under it and felt time fall like water. Nina met me by the stairwell. Her hair was tied back tighter than usual. She carried nothing, which meant she was ready to carry anything. Everything is arranged, she said. If you need me, I will be near the business center door at 11:40. Security will be visible, but not loud. Good, I said. If it gets loud, it won't be because of us. She hesitated. Your daughter stopped by guest services again. She asked about room moves. We said policy prevents changes without the reservation holder present. She didn't like that. They never do, I said. Thank you. Nina looked at the brim of Arthur's cap peeking from my bag. Was he Navy? Baker, I said. But he fought fire every day. She smiled once, small and fierce, and vanished into the flow of crew. At 6:30 p.m., the sun bled out behind a cloud. A gull hung in the wind like a pinned note. My phone buzzed. Daniel. Don't be late tonight. Mom, please don't make this hard. Sabrina. 11:45 sharp. Business center. Wear the blue shawl. You look respectable in blue. Laura. Let's just get it done quickly so we can have fun. I typed nothing back. Silence is a kind of note you can pin to a door. I ate dinner alone in the small grill on deck 7. A plain fish, lemon, water. The waiter tried to sell me wine. I asked for a second slice of lemon instead. He smiled as if that was a kind of joke. When I finished, I went to my cabin and changed. Not armor, but almost. A navy dress that fit clean. The blue shawl Sabrina liked. Low heels I could run in if I had to. I pinned my hair with 2 simple combs and touched the pearl at my throat. Not to show wealth. To remember weight. I placed the doctor's letter and my declarations in a neat folder. On top, I laid 1 blank sheet of paper and a pen. The blank was a weapon, too. Sometimes leaving space is how you force the truth to fill it. At 11:30, I left the cabin. The corridor was quiet, carpet soft beneath my steps. I could feel the ship's engines through my bones, steady, old, faithful. When the elevator doors opened, I saw my face in the gold reflection. Calm, not kind, not cruel, just done. Deck 3 was cooler than the others. Air conditioning hummed behind the walls. 2 crew walked by and nodded, neutral, respectful. The sign said business center in polite gold letters. The frosted door reflected my shape like a ghost. Nina stood nearby, pretending to review a schedule on a tablet. A man with a hotel pin, security, leaned at the corner with professional boredom. Mrs. Carver, Nina said, voice low. Remember, ask them to read the title out loud. Then the second paragraph. If they refuse, ask why. If they claim it's for your benefit, ask them to say exactly which benefit. I will be right here. Good, I said. If I forget my lines, I'll just tell the truth. She smiled. That's the best line. At 11:41, the door opened from the inside. The notary poked his head out. He had the same kind eyes as at dawn, a little more tired now. Mrs. Carver, he said, we're ready when you are. Inside, the room was small and very clean. A single desk, 2 chairs, a printer, a clock. The air smelled faintly of toner and new paper. My fingertips tingled. That is how paper rooms smell to people who have been hurt by paper. I placed my folder on the desk and sat. Before anyone else arrives, I said, please accept these. I slid him the doctor's letter and my signed declarations. He scanned them quickly, nodded, and filed them in a folder with my name. Do you want observers? He asked as if asking if I wanted sugar. Yes, I said. Polite ones. He pressed a button under the desk, nothing dramatic. Somewhere, a door knew it was time to open. At 11:44, my family arrived. Daniel first, in a dark jacket, jaw set like a stubborn door. Sabrina next, in cold silver, carrying her leather folder like a tray of knives. Laura last, glittering and damp-eyed, the kind of wet that looks like innocence but is really fear. "Mother," Daniel said. "Thank you for coming." I folded my hands. "Let's be efficient." Sabrina slid a single page onto the desk. Newly printed, clean, deadly. "It's exactly what we told you," she said. "Simple, temporary, for your comfort on board." I did not touch it. "Read me the title out loud," I said. Sabrina's smile pinched. "Mother, read it." Her voice did not shake. "Limited financial authorization, travel emergencies." "Good," I said. "Now read paragraph 2, slowly," she read. The words were the same soft knife I had seen at breakfast. Transactions deemed necessary. Lodging changes. Third-party bookings. Daniel stared at me like a salesman who sees a deal slip. Laura shifted from foot to foot. "Again," I said. Slower, they read. "You cannot hide poison by reading it sweet." "Which part?" I asked quietly. "Is for my comfort." Silence. I turned to the notary. "Please add to the record that the document was read aloud by the presenting party, and that the paragraph was explained as for comfort." The notary nodded. "Pen moving," Sabrina snapped. "This is ridiculous. Everyone does this. We're protecting you." I kept my eyes on her. "Then why does the money move away from me?" She glanced at Daniel. He took a breath and tried charm. "Mom, we're your children." "Yes," I said. "And I am your mother. I taught you to read. I didn't teach you to hide words from me." Behind them, the frosted glass door opened a few inches. It did not creak. It announced nothing. But in the doorway, a shape appeared. Marco, in a dark suit, neutral. At his shoulder, the security officer. On the other side, a quiet figure in a white coat, Dr. Saeed, leaned in the frame, patient as a photograph. Witnesses. The room learned a new shape. Sabrina saw them and straightened. "Is this necessary?" "Yes," I said. "Tonight is a night for truth." I slid my own folder forward. "Before I consider anything you brought, please note I have filed these documents at dawn. They state clearly that no authority over my accounts or property is granted to anyone on this ship. They also include a medical assessment of my capacity in case anyone suggests I'm confused." Daniel's face closed. Laura's glitter seemed to go out like a light in rain. The notary cleared his throat. "For the record, I have received Mrs. Carver's documents and entered them into the ship's file under her name. Any additional authorizations would directly conflict." "Then stamp them," I said. He took the stamp and pressed it once. Clean, final. The sound was a small thunder. Sabrina's voice went cold. "You planned this?" "Yes," I said. "For how long?" "Longer than you think." Daniel leaned forward, anger flashing. "We are trying to help you." "No," I said softly. "You are trying to help yourselves." I turned to the notary. "Please attach a copy of the limited financial authorization they brought to my file as presented and declined." "Note the time." He did. The clock said 11:49. I stood. "I won't sign." Sabrina's mouth twisted. "You will regret this." "Perhaps," I said. "But not tonight." I gathered my folder. Marco stepped aside from the door, not blocking, not inviting, simply making space around the truth. Laura whispered, "Mom, please." I looked at her, and for a moment I saw the girl who used to fall asleep in the bakery office with flour on her nose. I said very gently, "Then be the one who tells the truth." She looked down. I stepped into the corridor. The air felt cooler, cleaner. The ship's hum felt like a heartbeat that belonged to me again. Behind me, Sabrina's voice sharpened. "This isn't over." She was right. It wasn't. But the trap had closed, and it wasn't on me. Breakfast in the grand dining hall felt heavier than iron. The chandeliers still glowed. The waiters still smiled. The plates still clinked, but the warmth was gone. Daniel sat stiffly, his fork scraping the china too hard. Sabrina buttered toast with the precision of a surgeon. Her lips pressed so thin they looked bloodless. Laura stirred her coffee in endless circles, eyes darting anywhere but toward me. They didn't speak to each other. They didn't need to. Last night's failure had carved itself into their silence. I ate slowly, deliberately, like a queen surveying her table. A slice of melon. A sip of tea. I didn't rush. The sea outside the tall windows was restless, waves curling white against the ship's steel. It matched the rhythm of their nerves. Finally, Daniel spoke, his voice too low. "Why did you humiliate us?" I set my fork down gently. "I didn't humiliate you. I gave you a chance to be honest." Sabrina snapped her knife onto the plate. "You set us up." "Correction," I said. "You tried to set me up. I merely turned on the lights." Laura's spoon slipped, clattering into her cup. Coffee splashed onto the white cloth, spreading like a bruise. She looked stricken, then whispered, "We just wanted security." "Security?" I leaned forward. "Security is trust. You broke that long before last night." The waiter approached nervously to clean the spill. I gave him a calm smile. "Leave it. Some stains deserve to be seen." He nodded and backed away. By midday, whispers were already moving through the ship. The Carvers fought in the business center. Something about money. Something about papers. Crew are faster than rumor. Passengers are hungrier. By lunch, strangers looked at us longer than polite. By dinner, they would stare. That suited me. I spent the afternoon walking the decks. Not hiding, showing. I chatted with guests at the pool, complimented dresses in the boutiques, lingered at the piano bar. My presence was steady, visible. Theirs was not. Daniel kept to his phone. Sabrina stalked the corridors with sharp heels. Laura wept in the spa, mascara bleeding. At 3 gags, Nina intercepted me by the elevators. "They tried again," she said quietly. "This time with the casino manager. They asked if there was a way to transfer funds from your account for gaming credit." He reported it immediately. "And?" I asked. They were told no. "The account is flagged." "Only you." "Good," I said. "Let them keep trying. Each attempt is a record." She hesitated. "Do you want me to arrange an audience tonight? Public, where they can't twist it?" I smiled. "Yes, a stage where truth echoes." "Ballroom?" "Perfect," I said. "The bigger the chandelier, the brighter the cracks." Dinner was formal that evening. White gloves, silver domes, violinists weaving between tables. The captain himself made a toast. My family and I sat together, but we might as well have been 4 strangers bound by rope. The first course arrived, lobster bisque steaming in porcelain bowls. I lifted my spoon calmly. Sabrina's hand shook as she unfolded her napkin. "Mother," she hissed, low enough for only us. "This is not finished." "You embarrassed us in private." "Don't dare embarrass us in public." I looked at her steadily. "Truth embarrasses only the liar." Daniel's jaw clenched. "If you force us," I cut him off. "You already forced me, but you miscalculated. You thought I was soft? You forgot Arthur raised me to be steel-wrapped in flour," Laura whispered. "Please stop. People are watching? Let them," I said. Eyes make truth sharp. At the far end of the room, I saw Marco speaking quietly to a violinist. A subtle nod passed between them. The music swelled, then cut suddenly. Marco stepped forward, his voice clear. "Ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow night the ballroom will host a special presentation by one of our most esteemed guests, Mrs. Evelyn Carver, sharing her story of resilience and legacy." Applause rippled automatically. Guests turned to look at me, curiosity bright in their faces. My children froze, pale beneath the chandeliers. I stood gracefully and inclined my head. "Thank you, Mr. Bellini. I look forward to it." The room buzzed with interest. A presentation, a story. On a cruise, entertainment was currency. Daniel leaned in, whisper sharp. "You wouldn't dare," I smiled softly. "I already did." That night, back in my cabin, I wrote in my notebook. My hand was steady, my words clear. Tomorrow, under the chandeliers, I will lay it all out. The forms, the whispers, the attempts. Not in anger, in clarity. Let them see who tried to bury me and who stood tall. Arthur's cap sat on the desk beside me. I touched the brim, whispering, "Tomorrow, love." Tomorrow I deal the last hand. The sea outside roared, dark and endless. But my heart was calm. The pressure was theirs now, not mine. They thought I was cornered. They didn't realize I had built the corner myself. The ballroom was a cathedral of light. Golden chandeliers blazed above polished marble floors. Velvet drapes framed the stage, and rows of chairs filled with curious passengers stretched across the room. It smelled of perfume, champagne, and anticipation. I stood backstage, steady in my navy dress, Arthur's old watch clasped around my wrist. My heart was beating, but not with fear, with purpose. For months I had baked, saved, and sacrificed. For weeks I had endured whispers and manipulations. For days I had watched betrayal unfold in silence. Tonight, silence would end. Marco appeared beside me, his tuxedo crisp. "Mrs. Carver, the room is ready. The captain himself will be in the front row." "Good," I said. "The brighter the light, the clearer the truth." He offered me his arm. I declined with a smile. I would walk out alone. The violinist struck a single note, then stilled. Marco's voice rang out, "Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce a woman of strength, courage, and wisdom. Please welcome Mrs. Evelyn Carver." Applause swelled. I stepped forward, heels clicking, head held high. The sea of faces blurred for a moment, but then sharpened. Curious guests, whispering families, even staff in uniforms lined the walls. My children sat together near the front, stiff as statues, their faces pale under the glow. I reached the podium. My voice did not tremble. "Good evening. Tonight I want to tell you a story, not of fairy tales or voyages, but of family, sacrifice, and betrayal." A hush fell over the ballroom. I was married to a good man for 40 years. Together we built a life of small comforts and big love. When he passed, I carried his lessons forward. To work hard, to give generously, and to trust that family would honor family. When my children suggested this holiday, my heart soared. I imagined laughter on the decks, shared meals, and memories stitched like pearls. To pay for it, I sold my wedding ring. I baked pies until my hands cracked. I skipped meals so dollars could stretch. I poured everything into making this dream real. Gasps stirred among the passengers. I paused, letting the weight settle. My children shifted uneasily, eyes darting. "But dreams," I continued softly, "can be poisoned." While I worked, while I sacrificed, my children created something else, a private message group. They called it Drama-Free Vacation. In it, they wrote that I was a burden, that I should stay out of sight, that my usefulness was only in paying for their pleasures. The ballroom froze. A murmur rose like a tide. Heads turned toward Daniel, Sabrina, and Laura. Their faces burned crimson. I held up my phone. "Screenshots don't lie." They laughed at me. "Plan to dispute charges at the bank. Plan to strip this reservation from my hands. Plan to leave me with debt while they enjoyed my gift." Now the gasps turned to outrage. Someone whispered too loudly, "Disgraceful?" Another, "Shame on them." Daniel half rose from his chair. "Mother, this isn't the place. This," I said firmly, "is exactly the place. You wanted to use me in secret. I will answer you in the open." Applause broke from the back rows, surprising even me. It rolled forward, polite at first, then stronger. I steadied myself and spoke again. "To the guests here, forgive this intrusion into your holiday. But I share my story for a reason. Betrayal hides in shadows. It thrives in whispers. But once you drag it into the light, it shrivels." My voice softened, though my eyes stayed sharp. "To my children, I say this. You thought me weak. You mistook kindness for stupidity. But tonight, you learn that sacrifice does not equal silence. You will leave this ship with your shame. I will remain with my dignity." The ballroom erupted in claps, whistles, even a few cheers. The captain himself nodded gravely. Sabrina stood suddenly, tears streaking her mascara. "She's twisting everything." Enough!" a voice rang out. Mariana, my granddaughter, stood from the second row. Her young face was flushed, but her eyes burned clear. "She's telling the truth." I saw the messages. "I showed her," the audience gasped again. Sabrina sank back, defeated. Mariana walked toward the stage, her steps strong. She joined me at the podium, slipping her hand into mine. My grandmother deserves better. She deserves respect, and I'm proud she chose truth over silence. The room exploded in applause, louder than before. Tears pricked my eyes, but I held steady. Daniel, his face gray, muttered, "This will ruin us." "No," I said, voice carrying even without the microphone. "You ruined yourselves when you treated love like currency. When you treated me like a wallet instead of a mother." The captain rose to his feet. "Mrs. Carver, thank you for your honesty. The integrity you've shown tonight reflects true strength." He turned toward my children. "As for you, on this ship, respect is not optional. Consider this your final warning. Misconduct will not be tolerated." The ballroom buzzed with approval. My children bowed their heads, trapped by their own deeds. When it ended, I stepped off the stage to a wave of warm hands, passengers shaking mine, crew bowing slightly, strangers offering words like courageous, remarkable, inspiring. Behind me, my children sat shrunken, avoiding every eye. As I walked out, Mariana whispered, "Grandma, you were magnificent." I smiled. Not for pride, but for freedom. "No, darling. I was simply awake." We exited into the night air. The sea stretched wide and endless, stars scattered like diamonds. For the first time in years, the weight on my chest had lifted. Tomorrow, the cruise would continue. Music, dining, laughter, waves. My children would carry their shame. I would carry my strength. And for once, that was enough. The applause still echoed in my ears long after the ballroom doors closed behind me. For hours I had been surrounded by strangers, yet not once did I feel alone. Their sympathy had wrapped around me like a shawl, warmer than any embrace I had received from my own children in years. But applause fades. Strangers return to their laughter and wine, and once the lights dim, you are left with silence, the kind that presses questions into your bones. I sat on the balcony of my cabin, the night breeze carrying the salt of the sea. Below, the waves churned steady and indifferent. Above, the stars blinked their patient wisdom. And in the middle sat me, Evelyn Carver, 65 years old, a widow, a mother, a grandmother, wondering if tonight had freed me or simply shifted the chains. Behind the humiliation, behind the anger, was a wound that still bled. They were my children, my flesh, my memories wrapped up in living skin. Could I truly sever them from my life forever? The sliding door creaked. Mariana stepped out, barefoot, her hair loose from its braid. She carried 2 mugs of tea. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked gently. "Sleep?" I managed a weary smile. "Sleep belongs to the innocent. Tonight I am not innocent." She handed me a mug and settled beside me. "You were brave, Grandma. Everyone saw it. They'll never forget it. I didn't do it for them." "I know," she said softly. "You did it for yourself." I nodded, sipping the warm chamomile. Silence stretched between us, but it was the good kind, the silence of understanding. By morning, news of the confrontation had spread across the ship like spilled wine. Everywhere I went, eyes followed. Some passengers smiled, offering quiet nods of respect. Others whispered behind their menus, scandal painted on their faces. Crew members, usually reserved, now greeted me with a new formality, almost reverence. And my children? They avoided me. When I passed them in the corridor, Daniel looked away. Laura pulled her youngest closer. Sabrina muttered something under her breath, though I caught only the hiss of anger. But avoidance was not enough. Betrayal had consequences, and I had decisions to make. After breakfast, I asked the purser to arrange a private meeting with the captain. An hour later, I sat in his office, polished wood, brass accents, a globe spinning idly on the desk. He entered briskly, his white uniform gleaming. "Mrs. Carver," he greeted, his tone respectful. "You caused quite the storm last night." "I imagine so," I replied. "But storms cleanse," he smiled faintly. "Indeed. What can I do for you?" "I need to know my rights," I said. "As the primary payer of this voyage, as the reservation holder. If my children attempt to make changes, or worse, cause disruptions, I want assurance." He folded his hands. You are the sole contract holder. You alone determine who remains in these cabins. Should you wish to revoke access, security will enforce it. That is within your rights. The words settled over me like armor. I had feared fragility, but here I was, stronger than I'd ever been. That afternoon, while passengers lounged by the pool, I sat with Mr. Reynolds, the ship's legal advisor. A sharp man with sharper spectacles, he wasted no time. "Mrs. Carver," he said, sliding a folder toward me. "Your situation is not unique. Sadly, elder financial abuse is more common than people realize. If you choose, I can draft documentation today, statements, affidavits, that protect you against any future claims from your children." I traced my finger along the folder's edge. "Future claims?" He leaned forward. "If they tried to dispute payments, or if they attempted to access your accounts, this record would shield you. It would also support you if you wished to change your will." Change my will. The phrase cut through me. I had worked my whole life to leave something behind, to ease their paths. But why should I? Why reward betrayal? "I'll consider it," I whispered. "Consider quickly," he advised. That evening I took my dinner not in the crowded hall but in a small alcove with Mariana. The ship swayed gently, glasses clinking in rhythm. "Grandma," she said between bites of soup, "are you really going to cut them off?" I studied her face, the hope, the fear. "I don't know yet. Love doesn't vanish in a night. But respect? That may never return." She reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "Whatever you decide, I'm with you." Her loyalty was a balm I hadn't known I needed. The next day, my children came. Not together, but one by one, like soldiers approaching surrender. Daniel knocked first. His voice was low, his eyes rimmed red. "Mother, I'm sorry. We went too far." "Too far?" I asked coldly. "A betrayal has no distance, Daniel." "It is betrayal, whether an inch or a mile." He lowered his gaze. "Can't we fix it?" "Tell me," I said. "If you had not been exposed last night, would you be here apologizing?" His silence was answer enough. Later, Sabrina arrived, her tone sharper. "You embarrassed us in front of everyone. Do you know how humiliating that was?" "Humiliating?" I laughed bitterly. "You learned the word from me. I lived it long before last night." She stormed out, muttering curses. Laura came last. She didn't speak. She only cried, wringing her hands. But when I asked, "Would you have stopped them?" her silence told me the truth. That night, I stood again on my balcony. Mariana joined me as always. "What now?" she asked. "Now," I said, "I reclaim my life." The sea stretched endless, the stars eternal. My children had chosen greed over love, lies over truth. But I had chosen myself. For the first time in decades, that choice felt enough. Tomorrow, I would meet Mr. Reynolds again. Tomorrow, I might sign papers that rewrote my legacy. Tomorrow, I might finally live for me. But tonight, I let the wind wash me clean. And in the quiet, I whispered to the waves, "I am no one's burden. I am Evelyn Carver, and I am free." The following morning dawned bright, the sea a vast expanse of gold under the rising sun. I dressed with unusual care, not for others but for myself. A cream blouse, pearl earrings, and the quiet confidence of a woman who finally knew her worth. Today would decide everything. Mariana walked beside me as we made our way to the captain's office. She was quiet, but her grip on my hand was steady. When we arrived, Mr. Reynolds, the legal advisor, was already waiting with a stack of papers neatly arranged. "Mrs. Carver," he greeted, "I've prepared 3 documents. Each represents a different path. You are not obligated to sign anything today, but clarity is power." I sat across from him, my pulse steady. "Show me." He slid the first document forward. "This is a sworn affidavit confirming that you alone paid for the trip, of your own free will, without coercion. It protects you if your children attempt to dispute the charges." I nodded. That one was simple. I signed it immediately, my pen steady, my name bold across the page. The second document followed. "This is a financial protection order. It places restrictions on access your children may have to your accounts or property, ensuring they cannot exploit you again without your consent. The words burned, but they also healed. I signed that one too. Then came the third folder. This is more delicate. A revised will. You may remove, reduce, or reassign inheritance rights. You could leave everything to Mariana, to charity, to whomever you wish. It's your legacy, Mrs. Carver. You alone decide. The weight of it pressed down on me. For decades, my will had been a promise to my children, a final gesture of love, even when love had not been returned. But promises are not shackles, not when they are given to the undeserving. I looked at Mariana, who sat silently by my side, her eyes wide but supportive. She would not push me. She would not ask. That alone told me everything I needed to know. Mr. Reynolds, I said at last, prepare the changes. My children will not be rewarded for betrayal. Whatever I leave behind, Mariana will inherit, and a portion will go to causes that reflect my values, not their greed. For the first time, I felt something loosen in my chest, a tether cut, a future reclaimed. That afternoon, the confrontation came. I was reading on the deck when Daniel, Laura, and Sabrina approached together. Their faces carried different masks, guilt, anger, desperation, but their intent was unified. "Mother," Daniel began, "we've talked. We know we hurt you. But you can't just erase us. We're still your children." I closed my book, marking the page with calm precision. Children respect parents. Parents protect children. What you did was neither respect nor protection. It was theft dressed as family. Sabrina's voice rose, brittle and sharp. "So that's it? You humiliate us in front of everyone and now you'll disown us. You'll cut us out like we're strangers?" "You made yourselves strangers," I replied. Laura's eyes filled with tears. "We were stupid, Evelyn, thoughtless. But we're your blood. Doesn't that matter?" Blood, the word sliced through me. How many times had I clung to that excuse, believing it outweighed cruelty? But love is not proven by blood. It is proven by choice. "Blood may bind us," I said, "but it does not excuse betrayal. You chose greed over love. You chose shame over respect. And now I choose myself." Daniel stepped closer, his voice dropping to a plea. "We can fix this, Mother. We'll apologize. We'll make it right." "Would you have said that?" I asked, "if I had not stood in the ballroom last night? If strangers had not heard your cruelty? Tell me, if the lies had stayed hidden, would you be here now?" Silence, heavy, damning silence. I stood. "You may enjoy the rest of this voyage, but do not mistake my presence for reconciliation. When this ship docks, our ties end." Their faces twisted, anger, sorrow, disbelief. But I felt only clarity. That evening, I met Mariana on the upper deck. The sky was painted in purples and golds, the horizon endless. "It's done," I told her simply. "You signed the papers?" "Yes, and more than that, I signed myself free." She wrapped her arms around me, no hesitation, no agenda. Just love. The kind I had longed for from those who should have given it freely. We stood there in silence as the ship moved steadily forward, carving its path across the ocean. On the final day of the voyage, an announcement rang through the ship. "This evening there will be a farewell gala. Formal attire requested." I considered skipping it, hiding from the whispers. But then I remembered the ballroom, the applause, the strangers' respect, the truth spoken into light. I would not leave in silence. So I dressed in my finest gown, a deep sapphire that shimmered under the chandeliers. Mariana at my side, I entered the gala with my head high. People nodded, smiled. Some even clapped softly as I passed. My children were there too, but diminished, isolated, no longer admired. As the music played and couples danced, I sat with Mariana, sipping champagne. For the first time in years, I felt no weight, no fear, no obligation. The cruise had begun as their victory, a vacation on my sacrifice. It ended as my liberation. When the ship finally docked, I stepped ashore with Mariana's hand in mine. My children trailed behind, silent, burdened with the knowledge that their mother had slipped from their grasp, not in death, but in life. For once, I was not walking behind them, carrying their weight. I was walking ahead, free. The wind carried my husband's old words back to me, words he'd whispered decades ago. Evelyn, never let anyone make you small. You were born to stand tall, and at last, I did. The first breath of air off the ship was different, lighter, sharper, as if the world itself had shifted to acknowledge my freedom. I stood on the dock, suitcase in hand, Mariana by my side, watching the crowd scatter into taxis and buses. My children clustered together a few yards away, their voices hushed, their glances quick and ashamed. For once, I felt nothing tethering me to them. Mariana tugged gently at my sleeve. "Where to, Grandma?" The question had always been answered by obligation, wherever they needed, wherever I was told. But now the answer was mine. "There's a little inn by the coast," I said. "Quiet, family-run with gardens and sea views. I booked us 2 rooms yesterday." Her smile bloomed, wide and genuine. "A new chapter?" "A new book," I corrected. The inn was everything I'd imagined. Whitewashed walls draped with bougainvillea, windows thrown open to let in the scent of salt and lavender, a stone path leading to the beach. The owner, a woman about my age with kind eyes, greeted us warmly. "You must be Mrs. Carver. Welcome. Your rooms are ready." As she led us through the garden, I noticed something. There was no weight pressing me down. No expectation to cook, to clean, to organize. No whispers behind my back. Just the sound of waves and the laughter of strangers. Inside my room, I unpacked slowly, savoring the quiet. My clothes filled the wardrobe. My book lay on the nightstand. And for the first time in decades, the space felt mine. Not borrowed, not burdened, not conditional. That evening, Mariana and I walked along the shore. The tide was low, leaving shells scattered across the sand like forgotten treasures. She picked one up, holding it to her ear. "Can you hear the ocean?" she asked playfully. "I can hear my own heart," I replied. And for once, it wasn't heavy. We built a small sandcastle together, laughing like children, our hands wet with salt water. When it collapsed under the tide, Mariana clapped her hands. "We'll build another tomorrow, bigger." "Yes," I said. "We will." The next days unfolded gently. Mornings with coffee in the garden. Afternoons exploring small coastal towns, where shopkeepers greeted us like friends. Evenings filled with conversations I never knew I longed for. Mariana telling me her dreams, her fears, her plans for the future. "Grandma," she said one night over dinner, "have you ever thought of writing? You tell stories so beautifully. Maybe you could share them with others." The idea startled me. My life had always been about giving silently, not speaking aloud. But now silence no longer served me. "I'll think about it," I said, and I meant it. One morning, as I sat in the garden journaling, the innkeeper joined me with a pot of tea. "I heard what happened on the ship," she said gently. I tensed. "Word travels fast. People admire you," she continued. "What you did, speaking truth when it hurt, it's rare. Many women your age would have stayed silent. You didn't." I looked down at my hands, wrinkled, worn, but steady. For too long, I believed silence was strength. "Now I know truth is stronger," she nodded. "And truth makes room for new beginnings. But freedom is not without its shadows." One afternoon, as Mariana and I returned from town, I found a letter slipped under our door. The handwriting was familiar. "Daniel's mother," it began. "We're leaving tomorrow. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope someday you'll remember us not only for our mistakes. I wish you peace." My chest tightened. For a moment, the ache of motherhood returned, raw and sharp. But then I folded the letter, tucked it into my journal, and whispered, "Peace, yes, but forgiveness is earned." On the final night of our stay, Mariana and I sat on the terrace, watching the sun dip into the sea. The sky burned orange, pink, and violet, as if the world itself were being reborn. "Grandma," she said softly, "what's next?" I smiled, the answer clear at last. What's next is mine. Maybe I'll write. Maybe I'll travel. Maybe I'll finally learn to dance. For the first time, darling, I don't need to know. I just need to choose. She leaned her head on my shoulder. Whatever you choose, I'll be cheering. The waves roared softly below us, endless and free, and so was I, as I went to bed that night. I whispered a final farewell to the woman I had been, the silent, giving, overlooked Evelyn who had lived in the shadows of others. She was gone. In her place stood Evelyn Carver, whole, strong, and unafraid. Tomorrow would be unwritten. But for the first time, the pen was in my hand.